Hello everyone. So let's get started. Welcome to our YouTube channel, that is UPSC by Naman Raj Gupta. Today we are basically starting with lecture number 35, and in this lecture we will basically see the concept of Mill on rights of women. All right, and basically we will see his work, that is Subjection of Women, where he basically tries to refute some of the ideas which is being broadly held by society at large, right? And he will refute those ideas like based on gender inequality, subservient of women, the women exploitation of women by men, and etc. And basically refuting all those ideas which is being held at large by society, he will try propound his three rights, right? So basically जो भी ideas which are being held in the society, right, मिल सारे उन आइडियाज को in the work that is subjection of women will try challenging those ideas, and वो women के right के बारे में बात करेगा. All right, so we will see the concept of Mill's right on women. Okay, so in this particular lecture, but before starting that lecture, let's see whether do you remember whatever we have done from the previous lecture or not. Okay, so we will do this particular question, right, or set of quizzes, and you will get 10 seconds to answer in each question. All right, so make sure to mention your answer in the comment section. I will read them and I will also respond to you all right, so let's get started. As you can see, the first question: what does plural voting mean? Okay, plural voting mean, option A is giving more than one vote to the propertied class, giving more than one vote to the working class, right to vote in more than one constituency, right, wherever man has property, and option D is giving representation to minorities according to their population. Your time starts now. All right, all right, we are done with the 10 seconds. Now let's see the answer for this particular question. So the answer for this particular question is basically C, that is plural voting means basically right to vote in more than one constituency wherever man has property. This is the answer. All right, I'm hoping that you guys are attempting the previous lecture sincerely, and if you guys haven't watched the previous lecture, I sincerely advise you all to go and watch the previous lecture, because it will help you solidly build your basic pedestal for the further premise. Okay, आप until and unless पहले वाले लेक्चर की अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेकर नहीं आएंगे, आपको आगे की लेक्चर और कॉन्सेप्चुअल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ग्रैस्प करने में बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम आ सकती है. इसीलिए I highly recommend you to go and watch previous lecture, then continue with the further lecture. But for this lecture, continue watching it, then try revising from the previous lecture as well. All right, so let's see the second question. The second question is, which of the following reforms in democracy was suggested by Mill? All right, reforms. Option A is first past the post system that we have today, one man one vote system, secret ballot system, and weighted voting. And your time starts now. All right, now let's see the answer for this is basically weighted voting system, right? So under his plural voting system, Mill has propounded the idea of weighted voting system, where the weightage of men who are more able, who are more educated, who are more propertied class, their weightage of votes should be more than the people who are common, right? So because of their understanding of state, because of their understanding of and mature conception of various topic under state, Mill has propounded the system of weighted voting system, where he propounded the idea that men with special abilities and capabilities should have more weightage of their votes than the common people, right? So this is the idea behind his concept of weighted voting system. In order to know the concept of weighted voting system and different type of concept of voting system that has been given by Mill in his concept of representative government, go and watch the previous lecture. It is there in the detail, right? I will also ensure to mention that in the playlist. All right, so let's start with today's topic, that is Mill on right of women, right? Very important. one thing I want to bring to your notice is that the entire lecture is structured in the format of introduction, body, and conclusion. Okay, why this? You might have this question, sir, why do we have this structure? The basic idea is that in the exam, if you attempt your answer in this particular format of IBC, that is introduction, body, and conclusion, it is very tested structure which will make sure that your answer looks professional and also quality is utmost, right, to the evaluator. That is why it becomes very important to have this structure, that is of introduction, body, and conclusion in your answer, right? That is why even I structure our lecture in such a manner, because if you learn in this manner, you will also have the idea in this particular manner, and hence replication of the questions or answers in the exam becomes very easy and convenient, right? So now see, if we are starting with Mill on right of women, we will basically talk in this slide the introduction, right, from where his particular concept is coming out, right? So how the introduction of Mill on right of women will sound. So J.S. Mill, better known as champion of individual liberty, as we all know that, right, was one of the earliest advocates of equal right for women, right? What is the significance here? The significance of Mill is being advocated, that he is one of the earliest advocate of equal rights for women, right? When there was a patriarchy, or I will say stronghold patriarchal society in Europe, he is the first he was the first thinker, or individual who has propounded the equal rights for women. He championed the rights for women, right? In view of present day popularity of feminism, Mill's defense of feminist cause has assumed a special significance. So basically, Mill's defense on feminist cause, all right, like right to education, right to equal opportunity, right to employment, right, and refuting of several preconceived notions that was being held in the society, is basically accrues special significance to Mill's idea on right of women. Okay, so basically the source of his idea, that is on right of women, is coming from his essay on the subjection of women, right? This is the work of Mill, that is the subjection of women, which basically is a compilation of essay on the right of women, right? So in few essays he tries to refute certain ideas which are being held generally in the society. Then he tried to establish his idea of right on women by propounding that there are three major areas where women should have rights at par with the men. Okay, so in this work he has strongly maintained that there is no known difference. Okay, there is no known difference here. This highlighted part becomes very important between men and women, and that would justify attributing different rights to them, right? So why this particular notion that there is no known difference? Okay, why? As we all know that it is a strongly held notion in the society that men and women are not equal. Men and women are not equal on the basis of, let's say, biological or gender differences, right? Biological or gender differences, ये बेसिकली सोसाइटी में बोला जाता है कि men and women are not equal. Why they are not equal? Because they are biologically or on the basis of gender they are usually different, right? This is what we believe. But here Mill will come and वो बोलेंगे कि no, it is not like that, because these ideas are not tested. They are basically on the basis of generality of the practices, right? जो चलता आ रहा है हम उसी नोशन को सिर्फ कैरी फॉरवर्ड कर रहे हैं. It is not tasted, and hence he says that there is no known difference, right? Known difference in the sense which is experimented, which is checked, which is tasted, right? Then we come to know the conclusion that yes, there is certain differences. This is not the case, and hence he says that there is no known difference between men and women, and hence he will justify attributing different rights to them which is already being held by the men. Okay, so this is how you attempt the introduction. So basically this particular idea, it gives the basic theme, right? Basic theme of Mill's idea on right of women, that at the end there will be conclusion that there is no known difference, right? And this is how, if you attempt, अगर आप ऐसे attempt करते हैं आंसर को, it will give you a great stand out when it comes to PSIR optional, right? Your basic introduction is kind of also giving a idea to the evaluator that yes, you have done a justice to the answer by including his work, his basic theme, and also the individual or the introduction of the thinker at at the beginning. Okay, so this is how you start with the introduction. So now let's see the body, right? The different ideas which Mill challenged. Okay, so as we know that his work, that is Subjection of Women, is basically compilation of essay. जो इसका work है Subjection of Women is basically a compilation of essay. So in few essays, in few initial essays, he tries to refute, right? He tries to refute some of the ideas which are being held or which is being basically considered as right in the society, right? So ideas such as women are naturally worse of some things than men and should therefore be discouraged or forbidden from doing them. So this is one of the idea or preconceived notion or stigma that is being held in the society, right? So here Mill will basically challenge this particular stigma. Mill will basically challenge this particular stigma. How he will challenge? He will say that we simply do not know what women are capable of, right? We simply do not know what women are capable of because we have never let them try. And until and unless if we do not let them try, how will we know whether they are actually capable of or not, right? One cannot make authoritative statement without evidence, right? Until and unless we don't check them, we do not check them, we do not test them, how can someone make authoritative statement like women are naturally worse of some things than men and should therefore be discouraged or forbidden from doing them? So this is the basic idea which is being put forward by Mill, right? Without checking, without testing them, how can we conclude this? How can we pass such an authoritative statement? We cannot stop women from trying things because they might not be able to do them, right? We cannot just stop them from trying just by having this notion that they cannot do them. Until and unless we will make them try that particular thing, how will we know, right? For example, recent India's Chandrayaan mission, right? Chandrayaan mission was basically taken care by women at large, right? Women engineers at ISRO, that is Indian Space Research Organization. Basically they took the onus of successfully or making this India Chandrayaan mission successful, right? But before it was held that women cannot take part in space mission, and initially all were men who were dominating this space and technology arena or field, right? But we made them test. Women were given the prime responsibility in India's Chandrayaan missions, and how successfully they have made it done, right? India is the first country to land on the lunar southern surface, right? Lunar southern regolith or surface, right? Without testing the caliber or capability of women, how can we come to the conclusion, or how can we stop them from trying just by having the notion that they will not be able to do that, right? So this is the ground on which Mill is basically challenging the first idea that women are naturally worse of some things than men and should therefore be discouraged or forbidden from doing them, right? So this is the first idea which is being challenged by Mill. What is the second idea? So Mill pointed out that majority opinion favored inequality. Which inequality? Basically gender inequality. What is gender inequality? Gender inequality is basically the differentiation or discrimination of the genders based on their sexes, right? That is basically a gender inequality. And during his time, majority opinion favored inequality, that men and women are not equal, right? Men and women are not equal. But this contendant went against reason, right? He is saying that this majority held idea of gender inequality is against reason. Why against reason? Because he is saying that the basis for such supposition was that it was derived from generality of the practice in history, right, of humankind, and hence was regarded as good. What does this mean? What does the idea of generality of the practice in history means? If something is going on since generation, we are just taking it as a carry forward, right? We are just taking it as a carry forward, right? So from very earliest of time, it is being held that women should stay or confined before the four walls of the home, right? It is basic idea, it is basically held idea in the society, and hence we are taking that as a carry forward. We are just carrying it forward from generation to generation. If a son will see his mother just working within the four wall, he will also subject his wife to do the same, to work in the four walls or to work within the four walls, and hence his son will also practice the same thing. And this idea is known as generality of the practice, which is basically or generally practiced from generation to generation. And this is one of the basis which Mill is attributing to the idea of gender inequality. That gender inequality is nothing but it is something जो generality of practice में टिका हुआ है, राइट? हमने अपने घर में जैसा देखा हम वैसे अपने फ्यूचर जनरेशन को भी पास ऑन कर रहे हैं. हमने अगर अपने मॉम को देखा कि वो सिर्फ घर की चार दीवारी में काम कर रही है, वी हैव मेड आवर नोशन दैट कि विमेन आर मेड फॉर दैट, वो घर की चार दीवारी में ही काम करने के लिए बने हैं. एंड हेंस वी विल ऑल्सो सब्जेक्ट आवर वाइफ्स टू डू द सेम, and hence our son will also do the same with their family, right? And hence this will pass on from generation to generation. This is what is the basis which Mill attributes to the gender inequality. He is saying that gender inequality is basically based on the idea of generality of practice in the history of humankind, and hence was recorded as good, right? But the Mill pointed out that subordination of women was only due to fact that they were physically not strong as men, right? So initially in the savage or state of nature or natural state, what used to happen is that men, they used to be hunters, right? Why they used to be hunters? Because of their physical abilities, right? And women were basically what? Hoarders. They were basically hoarders or managers, right? They used to manage the walls. They used to manage what? They used to manage the household. They used to take care of the children, right? So this is what is the basis of gender equality, which is being carried forward even to these days, right? So basically Mill is saying that just because men were physically more stronger than the women, they used to go and work as an hunters, right? And women used to be at home and they used to manage the resources and take care of the household. And this is the only reason which is even to these days is being carried out as the basis for subordination of women. वही एक ऐसा रीजन है जो women की subordination का cause है even to these days. But that is not true because of the spatial and temporal differences, right? Spatial and temporal differences, समय एंड जगह के परिवर्तन के कारण अब ये नोशन सही नहीं है. क्यों? क्योंकि वी आर नॉट स्टेइंग इन द सेम स्टेट ऑफ नेचर. वी आर नॉट the physical abilities of the genders does not matter much, right? In fact, the origin of women's subjugation was in physical force of the allegedly superior bodily strength of men, right? As I have already told you, I have given the analogy of hunters and gatherers, right? So basically he is saying that whatever basis of gender inequality which is being based on the what strength or physical strength of the men and women, right? And he says that just because of differences in the strength, we cannot deny some of the basic rights to the women, right? What right to suffrage, what right to vote or suffrage has to do with the physical strength, right? What it has to do with the physical strength, what employment has to do with the physical strength, right? Bearing few labor or menial jobs, bearing them, what it has to do with the employment. That is why in today's service sector you will see majority of the employee of women's, right, women's of our country, and they are excelling in those service sectors, right? What it has to do with the strength, which was the basic cause of the gender inequality. जो जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी का बेसिक कॉज था, जो स्ट्रेंथ था, what it has to do with basic rights like right to vote, right? So this is how Mill is challenging some of the ideas which is being strongly held even to these days in the society, right? अगर यही नोशन सोसाइटी में चलता रहा, तो if I just have to give you one analogy or the present relevance of this topic, now in our country the sex ratio of our country is almost 1, right? That is 1:1. We have equal number of females to as compared to their male counterparts. We have equal number of female per male, right? That is why the sex ratio is 1 today, right? And let's say if we continue the same idea of difference of strength, right, and we keep on subjecting or subserventing the women on the basis of their strength, we will end up wasting half of our human resource, right? We will end up wasting half of our human resource, right? Because men and women are almost 50:50 in our country, right? 1:1, right? And if we will think the same about women, we will end up wasting half of our human resource, right? This is the idea which is being given by Mill. That is why in today's time you will see there is majority of the focus which is being given to the women and their upliftment in the various employment, various sectors and various services, right? So these are some of the ideas and their present relevance, and this is how you connect the topics to the present context, guys. Okay, so let's see the third idea which is being challenged. Mill looks on the other side of the fact too, that he points out that the rule of men over women was not entirely based on force, right? So there might be some contradiction to the idea that the idea of gender inequality is only based on strength, right? There might be some challenge to it, right? That no, it is not like that. There are certain more differences which makes men and women what different, right? He takes into notion that account as well. वो बोलता है कि he points out that the rule of men over women was not entirely based on force, that men are not always subjecting women on the basis of force. He takes into account that women also accepted it voluntarily, right? Even some women accepted it voluntarily without complaining and become consenting parties to their subordination. Even some women, they have voluntarily accepted their subjection to their male counterparts. Men on their part expected not only obedience but even affection from women, right? Men were not only kind of expecting obedience from the women, they were like, when do we subject anyone or kind of suppress anyone? Whenever we need them to obey us, right? Whenever we want them to obey, then we kind of try to suppress them, right? We tend to suppress them, right? But Mill is here propounding or advocating the idea that it is not always true. Men did not only wanted women to obey them, but they also wanted affection from the women, right? And hence they also shared a emotion of love with them, right? But it is because of voluntary acceptance of women subjection, they have accepted it voluntarily to be subjected under the men. It is also one of the cause that is leading to the preconceived notion like gender inequality in the society, right? So this is how he takes a balanced approach as well in challenging certain preconceived notion which is being held in the society, right? He is taking a balanced approach कि पूरी गलती महिलाओं की ही नहीं, पूरी गलती मैन की ही नहीं है when it comes to women subjection और patriarchy. कुछ गलतियां विमेन की भी है, कुछ गलतियां विमेन की भी हैं. विमेन की गलतियां कैसी हैं? Because they have voluntarily accepted their subjection without complaining about it, without revolting about it, right? But there might be again certain notion that that can be put forward is that it is true that women are subservient to men when it comes to strength, right? That is why they could not complain or revolt against it just because of fear, right? This can also be an idea. Here Mills take very balanced approach that there is a also equal issue from the women's side because they have voluntarily accepted without complaining the subjection of women, right? So these are some of the challenge, right? Some of the challenges from Mill of the generally held notion of the society. All right, now let's see. Mill questions grounds of subjection, right? After challenging he questions some of the grounds, right? Some of the grounds on which women are being subjected, right? So basically, if there is a ground of gender inequality on which on the basis of which women are subjected, he will basically try to challenge that particular or question that particular ground, right? How he does that? So basically Mill here lamented that half of mankind, right, the women have so long been held in subjection to their other half of the men. Okay, so it is very true. Like he is being lamenting this idea that half of the mankind, that is women, are so long subjection of their male counterparts. All right, he questioned the grounds of this subjection of women to men in the eye of law as well as custom, right? Why law and custom? Because law, in the eye of law, everyone are equal, right? In the eye of law, everyone are equal, right? And despite knowing that in the eye of law, the one half of the humankind that are being women are so long been subjected to the other half, that is men, right? That is why he questions the ground, right, of this particular subjection of women to the men in the eyes of law as well as custom. He argues that biological differences between men and women cannot be logically involved to justify the exclusion of women from the suffrage, from certain professional rights, and from the avenues of progress which have so far remained open to men, right? Just because of biological differences, Mill is saying that we cannot exclude women from certain basic rights, that is like suffrage, that is like right to certain profession, that is like their restriction from certain avenues of progress, right? So basically he is questioning the ground of biological difference, right? Biological difference in the sense the gender inequality, right? Gender inequality. And on what basis this idea of gender inequality is based? He is basically propounding the idea of strength, right? Just because men and women have difference in strength, they cannot be excluded from certain basic rights like right to suffrage, right to profession, and right to restrict from all such avenues which restrict their progress, right? How can we do that? And we have already seen certain examples, right, like service sectors where women are almost performing at par with their male counterparts and sometimes even better, right? So Mill is basically questioning the ground of biological difference or gender inequality, right? So here, after questioning or refuting the preconceived notion that is being held in the society, he is basically propounding the idea of right in three key areas. He is saying that there must be three key areas which should be attributed the rights to the women in order to bridge the lacuna or the gap or the gender gap that is being between men and women held from the generations of time, right? Mill is strongly pleaded for improving women's position by giving them suffrage, education, and employment opportunities, right? So what are the three key areas? The three key areas are basically right to vote, that is suffrage, education, and employment opportunities. Mill believed that the improvement in the position of women as concerned is not restricted to women alone, right? So whatever restriction or whatever a position of women is there in today's time is not only restricted to women, but it has to do with entire humankind, right? Because let's say if one woman in any household is suffering, the entire family will suffer, right? Her son will suffer, her husband will suffer, her family will suffer, right? So whatever problem is there with that particular woman is not only concerned with that particular woman, is not only limited to that particular woman, but it is being experienced in throughout the family, right? That is why it is being said that the limitations to women is not only restricted to them, but the entire humankind, right? That is why in order to eliminate all the vices in society, it becomes important and also imperative for us to eliminate or to give women certain right, which is very very fundamental in their progress, right? So in his book The Subjection of Women, he made a strong claim for equal status in the three key areas, right? He is saying that there should be three key areas where men and women should be given is equal status, right? Equal status or equal opportunity. What are the three areas? The first is women right to vote, right? Here the gender inequality or biological difference does not matter, and hence they should given the right to vote, right? Right to equal opportunity in education, right? Education has nothing to do with strength or biological difference, hence they should be given the equal opportunity in education and employment, right? There is employment, right? And employment which we think is not suitable to women, how can we think this? How can we think this without testing it, right? Without making women to do it, how can we decide that certain professions are not compatible for women, right? So first let us test them, then we should come to the conclusion, right? And in order to test it, we have to employ them first, right? Without employing, how can we come to the conclusion that there are certain employment which is not compatible to women, right? So these are three areas which Mill is advocating, which should be very very fundamental to women for their progress in the society. What are the three? Right to vote, right to equal opportunity in education, and employment, right? So this is not just important or pertinent to women themselves, but it is important for entire humankind. Because if a mother gets education in the in the home, the entire family gets educated, right? If mother gets employment, the standard of living of entire family will improve, right? And if mother have right to vote, she will also ensure the sensible government and also governance in the society. These are the three key areas, right? So let's see a case study, right, of Mill himself in his book, that is Subjection of Women. So as a parliamentarian in Europe or in Britain, Mill supported a married women's property bill, right? This is the case example which can be quoted in the exam, right? He was not just the propounder of women right, but he also supported a women's property bill in parliament, right? He contended that England had to move beyond the savage state. What is savage state? Basically a state of nature where marriage was based on the ideas that one had to have absolute power over other, right? So basically it is basically held in the society that marriage is an institution where one have a absolute power, that is basically husband have a absolute power over the wife, right? So basically he challenged this idea, he challenges this particular idea that England had to move out of or move beyond the savage state, a state of nature based on strength, where women or where the men had absolute power over the women, right? They have to move out of it, and they have to have more gender equality or gender equal society. Mill further pointed out that marriage did not give women the dignity and equal status that she ought to get, right? So basically it was generally held in यूरोप में ऐसा माना जाता था कि एक बार शादी हो गया देन हस्बैंड विल हैव एब्सोल्यूट कंट्रोल ओवर द वाइफ, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट मिल इज चैलेंजिंग हियर, दैट he is saying that marriage does not give women the dignity that she ought to get. जो उन्हें मिलना चाहिए, that dignity is not being fetched to them, right? Once married, she was totally under the control of her husband, right? She was denied by law over right to her children and property, right? So if any woman was divorced during his time, they were not even given right to their children and property, right? Hence they must have right to property, inheritance and custody, right? So this is how he propounds, or he supported the idea of women's property bill in the parliament. It is very important case example which can be quoted while attempting any answers related to women, and especially Mill's on subjection of women or right on women, right? Mill further argued that men alone should not be trusted with absolute power because it may lead to brutalization of women, right? And the recent very heinous act that we have seen was Manipur Violence Act, right? Manipur violence, how brutally, how heinous it is for the entire humankind that women were paraded naked, right? And that is what happens when we entrust men with the absolute power. Not only men, it is basically any gender. He is saying that if we will entrust men with absolute power, it will lead to brutalization of women, right? And this is the consequence of the all the act like wars and etc where women are always brutalized, right? ऐसा हमेशा होता है कि वॉर्स में या जब भी कोई वायलेंस होता है, women were always subjected to brutal activities of men. Why? Because of patriarchy, because of absolute power in the hand of men, right? So this is what Mill is saying. Mill also convinced that if suitable domestic help was made possible, then women, and in particular the talented and exceptional ones, could take up the profession or a vocation. ये कहना चाहते हैं अगर suitable domestic help अगर available करवा दिया जाए तो even women can take up some of the very important profession and also the vocation, right? So in today's time, why women could not take? Because most of the time they are being engaged in household chores and household management activities, right? So here Mill is saying that if women are given a suitable domestic help, even they can come out or they can free themselves from some of the household responsibilities, and they can take up some of the profession. And that is what is happening in today's time, right? We see how house help are playing important key role, where they take a part of babysitters, they take a part of a home maker, and women of that particular house, they step out for some important managerial profession, right? So in his book, that is Representative Government, Mill commented that differences of sex could not be basis of political right, as we have already seen. The differences of sex or biological difference cannot be basis to exclude women from right to vote, right? Just the biological difference or difference of sex could not be the basis of political right, that is right to vote and all other political right that are given to men. So he pleaded for women's voting right, right? So this is how he is advocating the rights or various political rights for the women, that just the mere biological difference cannot be the basis for excluding women from the political rights, right? So what can be a conclusion? Conclusion can be, according to Mill, the solution of above discussion is to give the women the freedom of choice whether married or unmarried, right? As men are given freedom of choice or an opportunity of choice, Similarly, female should or women should also be given freedom of choice irrespective of they being married or unmarried, right? He defended the right of individual women who wanted the opportunity to choose a life other than that of motherhood and marriage, right? He is basically saying that women should be given the opportunity to choose the life they want to lead, right? If they want to lead a life other than that of motherhood and marriage, they must have the right to do so, right? He also defended right of exceptional women to have the freedom of choice and make the home a dignified and honorable place. How? They will make it by doing something exceptional in some profession, right? Some profession. How? Even in today's time, if some women, right? Let's say Indra Nooyi of PepsiCo, right? She was ex-CEO of PepsiCo. How we know entire family of her through the name of Indra Nooyi? We don't know anyone from her home, but just because we know Indra Nooyi, we know the family of Indra Nooyi, right? Similarly, several sports persons like Saina Nehwal, right? Mithali Raj from Indian women cricket team, right? And this is how, by doing some exceptional work at some exceptional profession, they brings honor and dignity to their home. And this is what Mill is also saying, that women should be given right of exception, right of being exception from the normal life of motherhood and marriage. So he is coming to the point that so equality as a legal right between the sexes was Mill's main concern, right? This is the Mill's basic idea when it comes to right on women, right on women, right? And we have seen his concept of right on women in very holistic and comprehensive manner, and in the flow that how he started with refuting some of the preconceived notion or idea which is being held. He challenged this idea, then he propounded the basic areas, right? And which were three areas, right? What are the three areas? Can you guys remember them? There are three key areas where basically the education, right, employment, and right to vote, right? These are the three areas. And similarly, on the basis of these three key areas, he will propound his idea on political rights or rights on women, right? And this is conclusion, right? So this is how we have seen his concept of rights on women, right? So let's practice. These are some of the most anticipated questions, guys, right? And it is highly probable that these questions can be asked in any future date, right? Discuss Mill's contribution toward emancipation of women. Very important. This can also indirectly be asked in essays as well, right? Essay. As we can see the trend in today's time, how philosophical essays are taking a key role in essay paper. Mill concept of subjection of women becomes very important, right? Even we have a topic of women empowerment in our GS paper, right? Women empowerment in society, GS paper 1, right? Here the role of women and various steps or important contribution of philosophers for the sake of emancipation of women. Here the Mill's idea on the subjection of women becomes very important, right? So try attempting this particular question, right? So the question is, discuss the Mill contribution towards emancipation of women, and the second question is, examine the view of J.S.Mill on representative government and estimate their validity. Okay, in 250 words for 15 marks. You can attempt it and also send me, you can post your answer in my Telegram channel. I will for sure check it and also come back with the feedback, right? I will give the link for the Telegram channel. I'll give the link of the Telegram channel in the description. Check in the description and join the Telegram channel, Telegram community, where you guys can share your answer script. I will evaluate it and also come back with a comprehensive feedback. All right, people. So with this, thank you so much for watching, and also do like, subscribe, and share our videos, and also be happy and make sure to strive each day, because as you strive so you thrive. आप जितनी मेहनत करेंगे आपको उतनी फल मिलेगी. All right, so let's end today's lecture with this positive note.